there's been decisions, and I'm guilty of this, that somebody has come to me, and maybe I'm in the middle of something, or I'm deep thought, or I'm working on a specific project, and they say, hey, Hunter, here's the problem. How do we solve it? What should we do? And I go, here, do this, 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 and this. And they go, okay, and they go do it. And then 6 months later, I'll hear about somebody solving a similar problem. I'm going, why are y'all doing it that way? And they're like, well, that was the way you told us to. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why did I say, why did I say it that particular time? Because whatever that knowledge or information at that time. So right now, that's what we're having to focus as a business. I'm glad you asked that question. Is we spent the last year building out procedures.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the STR Investing Podcast. I'm your co-host Mark Lumpkin, and this week we not only have a very cool guest, but we've got a very cool story and some hot things that are happening in the vacation rental industry. We're excited to dive in. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Hunter Harrelson, who's out in Alabama on the beautiful Gulf of America. Hunter, say hi to everybody.
Hey everybody, come have a ball at the beach.
I love it, man. Can you just give us a little background on you, a little introduction, what you do, what got you into the space?
Sure. So I'm originally from Selma, Alabama, or that's where I call home. My dad's an industrial contractor from there, and went to school there in Selma, Morgan Academy, go Senators. Graduated there, went to Alabama. After Alabama, I graduated in 2008, so it was a terrible economy. So I went back to work for my dad. And my dad decided to send me down to Mobile, Alabama. And he jokes that he sent me down there to find work, and all I came back with was a wife. That's where I met my beautiful wife, Ginger, that many of your listeners have probably seen or heard. She's the lady in pink, pretty much. A now city councilwoman here in Orange Beach. So, but met her, and she transferred to the University of Alabama because she was a little bit younger than me. She graduates, ends up going to law school at Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. She finishes law school, decides she wants to move back to Mobile. And I'm like, great, we're going back to Mobile again. So we're there. I'm a financial advisor. I'm working for a bank. She's working for a large law firm. And we were just like, we were stuck in the rat race of being middle class. I mean, we made good money, but it just was like something was missing. And we had a family friend that worked for a vacation rental company down here in Gulf Shores. And the owners were just kind of absentee. They just were just not interested. There's about 20 properties under management, and they said, they just want somebody to just take it off their hands. I said, look, Ginger, you've got the good law job. I'll travel down to the beach 3 or 4 days a week. We'll kind of just see where this thing goes. Well, at the time, the company was called Mountain to Beach Vacation Rentals. And we were just like, we need a rebrand. We don't have any mountain condos, or mountain cabins. What do we come up with? And I have a professor at the University of Alabama that I still go back. I do group projects with his team, his school teams, his students. He has me come speak from time to time. I'll do Shark Tank initiatives with him. And I called him up and I said, Dr. D, I'm trying to rebrand this company, and I want a cool name. I want something catchy, like Uber, or Monster or something like that. And he was just like, Hunter, shut up. He said, none of those companies started out that name. It evolved into something. He said, but what have you got? And I said, I've got a board and I've got some hot names. And it was like Seashell, and we joked that we almost named the company Seaweed Properties just because it has it catches your attention. But Beachball was one of the names I threw out, and he said, give me the weekend. So he calls me back and he said, I really like Beachball. And I said, really? I don't know. It seems kind of childish. And he says, close your eyes. I closed my eyes. He said, Beachball. I said, okay. He said, what was the first thing that popped into your brain? I said, a little girl and a little boy chasing a beach ball down the beach. He said, well, what are you selling? I was like, dadgummit, you're right. So that was where Beachball Properties came from. And also the domain was available on GoDaddy for $1.99, which I will add to this story. The listeners need to check out. We actually own the domain beachball.com. We were actually able to procure that name, I think 2 years ago. A friend of mine kind of went as a straw man and bought it for a really good deal. I don't want to give all the details on it, but let's just say it's probably 10x from what I paid for it now. We've joked about selling beach balls on the actual website. But when all this rebranding was going on, Ginger's law firm was going through some changes, and they weren't going to renew her contract. And I said, well, why don't you just come down here? Let's just sell everything. We sold our house, sold our boat. We were about to sell one of our cars. My dad was like, please don't do that. I'll give you some money to help you out. We lived in his condo down here, my parents' condo down here. They were gracious enough to let us do that till we could build up some capital through the business. And it's been a journey ever since. We started out with those 20 properties. 6 of them immediately left when we changed the name and became a new company. and we just one bite at a time. And today we manage well over 350 properties between Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and Fort Morgan.
Good for you guys, man. That's so cool. And it's taken you a minute, right? I mean, this didn't happen overnight. You guys have been at this for what, 9-10 years?
This is our 10th full season we're going into this year. So this is year 10. So, our goal was to get to 100 properties in our first 5 years. And we hit 100 properties after year 3. So that was a huge accomplishment that we did that. But, our average is about 50 net new properties a year. So, that kind of tracks along where we're getting at. This year's a little bit more of a struggle, or I guess I should say last year, there's just, I think there's over 90 registered vacation rental managers, official registered vacation rental managers, not including co-hosts just in our area alone. I mean, sure, somebody's at City Hall applying for a license today for a vacation rental company. So super competitive, a little bit of race to the bottom, if you will. And, we went from being the scrappy, fun beach ball, like I want to help the grow. It's like now we're one of the largest companies in the area and in the United States. So we're kind of the easy pickings, right? We get picked on for some of the things we do, but we're always looking for ways to change, improve. There's more things we'll talk about on that as we get into it. But that's what it takes to have longevity in this business. You can't just like rest on it and say, oh, I'm at a particular number. You've got to analyze the business, like what's your GBR and what's your staffing got to look like in order to be successful.
I love that, man. That's so cool. I want to circle back to your rebrand and talk about that just for a minute. Not too deep into it, but I feel like a lot of people discount the value of a name, of a logo, and of a URL. And even especially today, they're like, it doesn't matter. I disagree. My thoughts are really around having a recognizable brand, a great name that's simple and to the point. And you guys have a color scheme and a brand that's totally recognizable. Like, I think the first time I invited you on the pod, we'd never talked. We'd never met in person. I didn't even really know who you were, but I knew your brand. I had seen you guys, and I might have only seen you guys a couple of times, but it was memorable. And so did you plan that? Like when you sought out and you went out and got the URL, or did it just happen for you?
Everything's planning with Ginger and I. We try to make it look like we're just having fun and it's fly by the seat of our pants, but everything's strategic in what we do. We knew with the Beachball, I mean, we were shocked that the domain was available. I mean, we were like, it's such an iconic thing. I mean, even if you don't think about kids running down the beach, I mean, you think about festivals and beach balls, and I mean, there's brands, you look at vacational brands all across the country, they're a beach, they have a beach ball in their logo some type of way. And of course, the beach ball, that's the 3 primary colors, right? That's the 3 colors that every child learns in kindergarten. And the logo was a little bit kind of by luck. So again, we were cheap. We didn't have any money. We were reaching out to companies to help with logo design, and we were talking like $1,000, $1,500 just to start to build a logo. Well, I was talking to my GoDaddy rep, and he said, well, we do logo design. This is before ChatGPT and AI, and you could go on and build this. So I was like, well, what's the deal? He said, well, for $300, we'll give you 3 rounds of 3. And I had just like gone on Google and like typed in beach ball, and I found an image of a beach ball floating in a pool. And I sent them that image, and I said, I like this particular beach ball. And it's actually the same angle that our beach ball's angled at. And it kind of, if you look, it kind of looks like a Coke bottle. Sometimes you look at it, it looks like the Carnival Cruise tail. So we're like, we're diving into multiple different memorable things. And on the second round, they actually got the logo right. And it was actually a sideways logo. And I came up with the tagline, "Come have a ball at the beach." I mean, it just rolled off the tongue. And then the circular logo, which is what most people probably see, is this. It actually came from our t-shirt design company that we get koozies from. They're like, well, your long logo just doesn't really fit right. Do you mind if we adjust it? And I was like, sure. So at no additional cost, they built the badge for us. So we call it the logo and the badge, and they're interchangeable. And then I've even, I get all my shirts where it's just like, I call it like the polo logo, right? It's just the beach ball. And then the other thing we did is stickering. If you go to the Floribama, if you go to Pirates Cove, if you go to any of these, these businesses around town that will allow you to put a sticker up somewhere, we sticker the stew out of it. I mean, if you go to the Bahamas, there's beach ball stickers of the Bahamas, and we give stickers out to every guest that comes in, and we encourage them to sticker. And we've done campaigns in the past where we've said, if you put the beach ball and take a picture and hashtag us or whatever, we'll put you in for a drawing for a free vacation. So that was, totally guerrilla marketing by design to get the beach ball out there. And we're actually, we're in the final stages of trying to create an e-commerce site just to see if people will actually buy, the beach ball and its own. Not just the properties, but just the beach ball, that lifestyle, that whole, shoot, Salt Life became something just by a couple of words, right?
Yeah, I love that, man. Good for you guys. You definitely have one of the industry's most recognizable and familiar brands, which is pretty damn impressive, right? When you look at the fact that it's you and your wife, you guys have got 300 properties. You're not small fries, but you're not VC backed, 100,000 properties, went and fundraised $100 million, unless you did it in secret.
No,
but you guys
we are 100% bootstrapped. Never really mentioned this on a podcast before. My father gave us I guess it wasn't a loan. He brought in some equity into the business, and it was $20,000 to buy the original business. So he basically bought $1,000 a contract, and then he gave me some money for payroll to kind of live off of and pay one employee. So it was to the tune of about $100,000. And we've not taken any additional growth dimes. Now, we borrowed money to buy our building or build out our laundry facility or buy a vehicle or two, but no additional capital, no VC. And trust me, they've all called me. They've all wanted to inject something and get a taste. But we're happy doing what we're doing. And it's like when companies do call, that they're thinking about they would love to buy us or love to buy a piece of us or roll us up. I mentioned earlier, my dad's got a very, very successful industrial construction company. If I need money, I can just call him. I don't want to, but I could call him if I needed to do that. So, we're content in what we do, and we love what we do. We love this game. It's got its challenges, just like any business, and we'll get more into that as we go along.
I love that, man. It's rare to find that, and what it just takes is it kind of takes a combination of a few things: a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and time, really. And so when you look back, because now you're 10 years in, when you look back, aside from having a great brand and recognition and hard work and things like that, was there anything else that you can kind of pinpoint that you would attribute to the success? Because growing to 300 plus properties, 350 plus properties is no small feat. That's a hard thing to do. Was there anything else other than just grit and determination that helped you along the way?
So, fortunately or unfortunately, 2020, COVID. We had COVID, and we also had I hate to use the H word, it's kind of like Beetlejuice. What we call it the disturbances in the Gulf, right? Because if you say the H word 3 times, someone's going to show up. So when COVID hit, we were still growing at a pretty steady click. It was, well, let me take a step back. To that hard work, we knew we couldn't market to the masses. How do you have a marketing budget to market everywhere? But we also recognize nobody's from Gulf Shores. Nobody was born in Gulf Shores. Nobody was born in Orange Beach. We're all transplants from somewhere. So we focused very heavily on our local marketing, where a lot of my competitors focused on, we've got to market out, we've got to scream out. Here, we said, well, look, if everybody locally knows us, if we're big into the chamber and we go to city council meetings and the city council knows who we are and the mayors know who we are and our reps know who we are, they will tell other people about us, and that beach ball, will grow. And then there's also around that time, Ginger, she talks more about this. It's the Facebook group we created. She created What's Happening Orange Beach and What's Happening Gulf Shores. And I thought it was the dumbest thing. What's Happening Orange Beach has 130,000 followers. And it got to a point where, and this is where it ties into COVID. So when COVID happened, none of us knew what was going on, right? Nobody, you could sit here now and say hindsight's 2020, and I knew this, I knew that. We did not know. We did not know. I mean, we had just won Business of the Year, and a month later, we didn't even know if we had a business. Right. So we decided, I think it was after 3 days, we were fighting guests on refunds. And I just remember making the decision. I said, look, we don't know what this is going to be. Refund every guest 100%. Let's not hold any of their money. Let's not try to hold them to a future booking. Let's just let it go. And we did well over $500,000 in refunds over a 1 week period. I mean, the escrow account was basically bottomed out. I had enough money in our operating account that I told my staff, I said, we can get to Memorial Day. After Memorial Day, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And then this is where Ginger and I first got into, I guess, lobbying, if you will. We went to our reps. We were trying to get conversations with the governor, like, look, the beaches, we need to open the beach. It's safe out on the beach. It's safe out in this area. And I'll never forget, it was April the 28th at 11 a.m. when Kay Ivey, the governor, opened the beaches back up. She made that announcement. Now, we had a little bit of insider information. We knew it was coming. I had all staff back in the office. And that day at that time was the single largest sales day in our history. I think we did over $150,000 in one day in sales.
Holy. And these are people from everywhere, right?
These are people from everywhere because they were looking for somewhere to go, and this was an opportunity. And what I did not realize at the time, but I realize now, is our goodwill, us giving those refunds where everybody else was fighting it, it got all over Facebook. Beachball gave refunds. This company did not. There were companies in our area that were being threatened, class action lawsuits. There were all this bad, and then we just had all this goodwill. And we blew up. We blew up so bad that our credit card processor actually dropped us in the middle of the summer because they had a panic attack. They thought we were laundering money because we went from zero money to like $6 million in sales in like 2 months. And then they were freaked out about, COVID, and, our industry could be just, the spigot be cut off at any minute. But I would say COVID, and then after that, Sally hit. And when Sally hit, all that was about the time that people could still buy property. The interest rates were still low. So all that goodwill built up that year, and all these new buyers came into our market to buy, and we were the hot commodity. We were the hot name. We were what everybody was talking about. And that was when we really just like shot out of a cannon. And then 2 years later in 2022, we were awarded Verma's Vacational Management Company of the Year. So that was a nice feather to stick in the cap. And it's been a steady click ever since.
Dude, look at you guys, man. What a story. If the podcast ended right now, this would be one of my favorite episodes. Like, what a story, dude. From giving everybody their money back and being at a $0 bank balance to the day. Was it literally to the day? Like, they announced that morning that the beaches were open, and you guys, that was your record day? Or
that was our record day. Now today, obviously, that's probably a normal Wednesday or Friday.
I got you.
But that day, I mean, we were processing, $8,000, $12,000 a day, and that was nice. And then all of a sudden, 150 just bam in one day. It was just like, holy cow! I mean, phones are ringing off the hook. It was wild.
I got to ask you this because we're a couple of years past, so you can answer this question. What was your pricing strategy for your properties? Did you have premiums? Did you have premiums knowing that it was going to be nuts, or did it catch you off guard?
Oh no, we got tore up. So we were on Beyond pricing, which we're on Wheelhouse now, just for full disclosure on that. But we had signed up with Beyond, and we almost kind of got caught with our pants down, right? Because Beyond was pricing everything out, bottomed out. There was no demand, so the computer, the AI was like, well, no demand, so we're just going to bottom prices. And we would go back and look, and there would be a reservation right here that maybe paid $500, and then right beside it, they paid $1,500 for the same property. Because it was just trying to catch up with the demand. So thankfully we had that, because otherwise if my revenue manager had been in there just trying to move everything around, it'd been nuts. But we were on a dynamic pricing, and we were one of the first ones in our area. And you'll hear a lot of that out of us. We are early adopters on a lot of things. Like, I love to beta test. I talk to all the tech companies out there. I'm like, if you've got something you want somebody to test and you want me to rip it apart, call us. And several people in the industry, like Hunter will rip it apart. He'll tell you, like, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, and he's not going to pull any punches. But yeah, we jumped on dynamic pricing, and I remember I had competitors saying, like, we don't use dynamic pricing. We know our strategy, we know what it should be priced at. Everybody in the market uses dynamic pricing now. I mean, we were the first company, or one of the first companies, to do Instabook on Vrbo before Airbnb became a thing. Because people are like, oh no, we want to screen all of our guests. I'm like, well, you're going to get screened out of the business eventually. So that's just a couple of our other, just look, as I get to talking, I remember these little caveats of things that we tested and we tried and we did, and now everybody else, adopted it when they saw it was working for us.
I love that, man. Such a cool story. Good for you guys. When you look back at when you were at 5, 10, 50, 100 properties, versus today where you're hundreds and hundreds of properties, what have been the biggest scaling challenges? So as you started to grow, what have been the things that you've had to be like, all right, I used to just be able to drive over there and fix that clogged toilet. I used to be able to answer this phone call at night when someone can't get in the door. Obviously, you can't do that stuff anymore. And so what have been kind of the stair steps you've had to take, and what have been those big challenges to scaling and things that you've had to change, probably mentally, right? For a lot of us, it's a mental shift to get to that next level. So
our theory is every 50 properties, whatever you are doing completely breaks down. You're sitting there at 349, everything's G'ing and hawing, everything's rocking and rolling. You hit 350, and all of a sudden you look around going like, nothing is working. The building's on fire. You've got to re-strategize. So up to that first 150 to 200 properties. Our office building we actually purchased in 2021, and we own all. It's like a 5,000 square foot building, but it used to be carved out into 3 sections, and we had the far west end section. And our landlord was trying to get me to sign a 7-year lease. I said, "Look, I'm busting at the seams. We're going to get too big. Would you sell the building?" And this was a company out of Oregon who didn't. We were like the redheaded stepchild property. Most of their properties were in like Texas and Georgia. They had nothing else in Alabama. Our property wasn't even listed on their corporate website. And I said, "Would y'all be willing to sell?" And they said, "Yeah, throw me a price." And I threw them a price that was probably 60% of my appraised internal value. And they came up like $100,000, and I couldn't sign the contract fast enough. So we bought the building, and it allowed us to kind of move out those other tenants, and we were able to kind of expand. But prior to that, my office sat in the center. I was not your typical CEO. I'm the corner office. I've got the windows. I was actually inside, no window. But I sat right across from customer service. I could hear all the phone calls. I could kind of hear everything that was happening there. Across the hall from me was kind of my I guess a little bit of owner relations, and then maintenance sat behind me. So everything was going up and down the hall, and I could hear everything. Now when we hit about 250, it was just too much. Mentally, I could not listen to everything that was happening and be successful. So I eventually had to move my office away. I now have a pretty window. You can probably see the reflection in the flag behind me. And I kind of have a door now that I do kind of tell people like, "Hey, look, I'm working, or I'm on a podcast, or I'm doing something. Like, you can't just keep coming to me." But the biggest challenge for me is everything flew through or went through me and Ginger in our decision making. Getting what's in my brain onto paper and procedures and how we want to do it, that's probably been one of my biggest challenges, because there's been decisions, and I'm guilty of this, that somebody has come to me, and maybe I'm in the middle of something, or I'm deep thought, or I'm working on a specific project, and they say, "Hey Hunter, here's the problem. How do we solve it? What should we do?" And I go, "Here, do this, 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 and this." And they go, "Okay," and they go do it. And then 6 months later, I'll hear about somebody solving a similar problem. I'm going, "Why are y'all doing it that way?" And they're like, "Well, that was the way you told us to." And I'm like, "That doesn't make sense. Why did I say, why did I say it that particular time?" Because whatever that knowledge or information at that time. So right now, that's what we're having to focus as a business. I'm glad you asked that question. Is we spent the last year building out procedures. We have a procedure for just about everything you can do. Well, we put all that in Google Docs. And I was like, this is just a challenge for anybody new that comes to hire here. If I don't sit there in their hip pocket for the day and tell them, "Oh yeah, that HOA does this, or this person does," how do I fix that? Well, drum roll, AI. We actually had a developer come in, and we have built Beachball. And it is an internal, we built it on Gemini, but it's an internal GPT or AI or bot or whatever you want to call it that has all of our procedures baked into it. So a new employee can type in, "How do I make a reservation? How do I transfer a reservation? How do I cancel a reservation? I'm at a unit and this is going on." And the bot will think, read through the procedures. We actually tied it in through Streamline, so it'll go into Streamline, and that's how our PMS is. It tells them, "This is how you cancel, this is how you do this, step by step, how do you do it?" Where we learned that a lot of times a new employee would go find their manager, "How do I do this?" And it was just killing man hours, and now the bot is just boom, boom, boom. And like, they love it in the customer service department. And that's another thing, like we've learned in customer service. Steve Schwab, CEO or current CEO of Casago, I was sitting on a panel with him one time, and it dawned on me. He said, we now live in a time of we only talk to a guest experience when there's a failure, right? There used to be a time guests came in, you gave them the keys, "I'm a real person," we called, we communicated. Well, now everything is automated emails, automated text messages, automatic door locks. Everything is, and now we're just this conglomerate behind the beach ball, right? We're not a real person. So now when they call the office, it is to complain. And, the poor ladies that work up there, they're not the person who changed out the toilet. They don't manage the HOA. They didn't make the weather bad, whatever that may be, and they're just getting a bit hounded on. And there's about an 18-month life cycle for that position. You usually make it to about 2 seasons, and you're like, I've just had enough of, doing what I'm doing. So we've realized that's going to cycle, and we just can't constantly be retraining. So now this AI is there. We make them go through Streamline University. They do have a couple of hands-on. We make them take a quiz or a test at the end of the week so they know how to do basic things. But then now they go to the AI, and the AI helps answer their questions for them.
Dude, that is absolutely incredible. How long ago did you guys implement this? Or is this something that's come into place in the last 6 months? Is it something you did a couple years ago?
It's about 2 or 3 weeks ago is when we actually say you're catching us right on the front end of it, and it learns like it learns, because I was actually asking it the other day about some procedure, and it was like, how do you put in a work order? I was just trying to ask it what it would do, and at the end it said you can either do this or this, and then I responded and said no, you should always save and activate, and it says noted. I'll make sure in the system in the future. So even I am trying to play in it and play with it and try to teach it certain things. So a lot of times I'm just sitting around the house watching TV, later in the evening, kids are going to bed. I'll just start asking it I hate to use this, I try to ask it dumb questions, to try to teach it, what it needs to know.
Because it's going to only get better, right? It's only going to get better. You guys have just rolled it out. In a year or in 5 years, this thing will have accumulated all that information from all of your reservations, your employees that have come and gone, from you, and it will really just be this total machine. I love that you've done that. I would guess almost no one has done that. I would guess when this comes out next week that every single person that's either a property manager, they're running an STR company, they're investing in short-term rentals, practically no one has talked about it and no one is doing it. So I love that we dove into that.
I wish I could patent the idea. I don't think you can patent AI or something like that, because if I could, I would probably sell it, but I think the web developers, they're going to make all the money off of that.
For sure, man. What was the practicality behind getting that going? Like, what did it actually take? You said you brought in a web developer. Just ballpark us. How much did it cost you? How long did it take to kind of get this, all your SOPs? Because I'm sure you were like the rest of us. You had a load of Google Docs, and you had a rusty old manual sitting in the corner, and Karen had the password to this, and John knew what to do here. Like that information was spread out throughout your office. How did you guys condense it all down and get that into the bot?
So we've got a superstar, Shannon, that works for us. She started out in customer service. She now is our purchasing and office manager. She writes everything down. She is a note taker. And it was 2 or 3 years ago we started hiring VAs. And I was like, how do we train a VA overseas? And she just she's very, very quiet, very to herself, not nearly as loud and boisterous as me. She kind of raised her hand. She's like, well, I've got all this written down in notebooks. And I'm like, what? She's like, oh yeah, I know this is how you make a reservation. I'm like, okay, hold on. Stop what you're doing. You need to go transition all this into Word documents. So that was what she did. She started building out all those Word documents and got all the procedures basically for customer service. Housekeeping's its own animal. I've got a lady that runs housekeeping flawlessly, so I kind of left her alone on this, but she kind of likes the idea of eventually getting involved in this and building all that out as well. And maintenance was kind of a different animal, but we're cycling maintenance into that. So Shannon has actually transitioned now to she's working with the maintenance department and building out certain procedures there, which again, thankfully Streamline already had all that information. So how did it come into practice, right? Again, I told you we were having turnover in customer service, and somebody like a Shannon was being pulled off of their day-to-day to go sit there and babysit essentially somebody and teach them how to do things, and then they would run across the hall and come ask her how to do it, and I'm just like, we are killing man hours. Well, our website, if you've ever been to beachball.com, is a completely custom website. It's not BizCore, Blue Tent, ICND. It's 100% ours, our product. We own it. And it just so happens that the guy that built it lives here in Gulf Shores. He used to work for this huge tech company, and now he started his own operation. I think he's pretty much started because of me, and he's getting into the short-term rental market. And he and I one time were having a beer, sitting there chatting, and he was like, well, I could probably build you something like that. I said, well, could you build it on like a chat? Well, actually, he told me the idea. He wants to build, and we're going to do this eventually. We're going to have a Gemini or GPT on our website. So somebody can go on our website and type in what they're looking for, and the website will pull up properties that match that. But this, for me, was like, well, hold on. I need my internal for this first. So he's like, yeah, I can do that. So we fed him everything he could have, fed him all the information he could have. He was like, he has Streamline access. He said, oh, I can get here and I can pull all these articles and I can pull all this stuff. And we're just constantly telling him things to add. Well, he basically built it. He said every time Shannon builds a new procedure, she uploads it in Docs and instantly it's in the AI. It's in the Beachbot. So it just was a beer conversation, this conversation led to this. Because having all these procedures in Google Docs and then giving the new employee Google Doc access and them not even knowing what they're looking for. This was just a way to simplify all that into one place.
Dude, I was just looking through our company's SOP warehouse for like 15 minutes trying to find something, some doc that we made 3 years ago that I know is out of date, but I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do in this case, da 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 da. And like, duh, this is a no-brainer. Like, we should have this for our business too. So that's really cool, man. I love that you guys did that. I guarantee it's going to be a game changer if it already hasn't been.
In our staff meeting the other day, I was like, show of hands, who's using it? And 2 or 3, I said, please, for the love of God, use this. Use it. Sit around, ask it questions. I said, I paid a lot of money for it, but I want to encourage you to use this. It will help. And we've got one lady that, she's a little bit older, so I kind of thought she would have a challenge. She loves it. She uses it the most. She's like, I ask it 10, 12 questions a day. I'm like, that's how it learns. Because we actually, and another thing that kind of tied into this, we use Bestie. I don't know if you know Sam or not over at Bestie, but we signed up with them. He's all AI comms. We're working with them on our locks, our upsells. I was talking to him because I got frustrated at first. I said, I keep getting emails. I said, the AI doesn't seem to know anything. He was like, just give it time. It's like Novocaine. Like, it's going to eventually learn. It's just like you hired a new employee, but once it learns, it always has that knowledge base. So that was another piece of it that I was kind of like, wait, so if we could do this here, and again, I'm kind of a visionary. Me and my wife both are visionaries, and we joke that we see the world in different colors. We just see different things, and it's probably another testament to how we've grown and what we've done is because we're just it's if you know Brooke with Ventori, he had Ginger and I do the CI, which is the culture index. And I, this is another great story, and we know he was just trying to sell Ventori, but he has Ginger and I both do this this survey. And he sends us a text, and Brooke's a very busy guy, like hard to get in touch with. And he goes, "Can y'all get on a call like in the next 15 minutes? I'm driving." We're like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Guys, Hunter, you're a top 2% persuader, almost a trailblazer hybrid, and Ginger, you're a top 15 to 10% in the world trailblazer." He goes, "The fact that you two are married, you get along, and you're in business together," he goes, "y'all could quit vacation rentals and sell widgets for a living and you'd be successful. Y'all are just this power combo that is just can't be stopped." And a lot of it's because I know how to take a back seat to Ginger. Like when she gets a dog on a bone about something, I'm like, "Hey, look, you win this one, I win this one." We work well together. A lot of people joke that we're the Velcro couple. We always tend to be together. I had a friend actually the other day I was talking, and he said, "I know if I talk to Ginger about an idea, y'all have probably already discussed it and y'all are on the same page about it. So there's no point in me coming to ask you if you've got a different opinion on it."
That's awesome, man. I love that. So cool. You and I could probably rip for hours on this podcast, and it'd be a great podcast. But to be respectful of your time and to try to stay within like our 45-minute block that we normally do, we'll probably have to have you back for a part 2 if you're down. Let's dive into what you guys are after right now. You got a little bit of a David and Goliath story. You're fighting with Airbnb in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, we are Airbnb public enemy number 1 right now. If anybody on Airbnb has listened to this podcast, they've probably heard of Hunter and Ginger, and they've heard of Beachball. To give you a little bit of a backstory, so Alabama is a licensed law escrow state. So in order to manage vacation rentals, you have to be licensed as a realtor, and you have to have a real estate brokerage. Part of that real estate law states that when a guest or even your homeowner, you have to hold all funds as a fiduciary in an Alabama institution in escrow. That money cannot be accessed until the guest checks out of the property. Okay? That's the law. Well, a couple years back, Airbnb has always not abided by that law. And many of y'all probably know if you book on, if you deal with Airbnb, they hold the funds until the guest checks out or checks in 24 hours after the guest checks in. They pay you your funds, right? So you're at that mercy. So right now, the Alabama Real Estate Board came and audited my company. 20% of my money is just, there's nothing to show for it because Airbnb's holding it wherever. Well, VRBO had gotten the idea they were going to, because they need to sell their new one product, One Key, right? Well, the only way for that to work is they need to be merchant of record, right? They need to be the one holding the funds. Well, when we heard about that, at the same time, there was a bill being proposed at the state level called the 2024 Tourism Tax Protection Act. And essentially, the way this law was originally written, it was going to give the OTAs the keys to the castle. They were going to have all the guest comms, everything was going to be basically eliminated from the property managers, and they were going to take control. So Ginger and I, we're into politics, and we're we're part of a PAC down here, and the PAC brings this to our attention, and we start screaming, no, this isn't good. So they brought us up to Montgomery. We lobbied, talked to the reps, and we got an amendment written where part of this law states that if you are a licensed with an office in the state of Alabama, you must be merchant of record. Let's just say a certain person at VRBO had a call with me and Ginger and said, bravo, I cannot believe we just talked about possibly passing something or putting something into our company, and y'all within 2 months got a law passed that blockaded us from doing it. Airbnb just drove through the stoplights. They're just not adhering to it, don't care. Well, we've been going back. I've talked to the Attorney General. I've talked to several others. Our cardinal sin was we did not put fines or any type of, if you break this rule, what happens, right? And we were like, well, that was our fault. We didn't think, we just thought, hey, this is the law, they'll abide by it. Well, this year, Airbnb has positioned a new law they want to put into place. So when you book on Airbnb, it tells you at the end of the reservation, you get $3 million of guaranteed bodily harm. I don't think they call it coverage, or it's just a guarantee. And there's $1 million worth of damage guarantee. Well, I don't know what's happened. I don't want to speculate in their company, but something has cued them that they need in Alabama to state that their guarantee is not an insurance product, that they do not fall under insurance, which I'm assuming they've been getting beat up about not paying for damages to be in homeowners properties. However, they wanted property man. So if you had a website or you were a Vrbo or an Airbnb, you had to have a separate insurance policy to guarantee their guarantee. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need to have an insurance policy to protect your guarantee? Like, I already have an insurance policy. My homeowners already have an insurance policy. This is not a good bill. So we've gone up, we've lobbied it, and we have a local senator here that happens to be on that committee that they're trying to pass it through, and he's telling them, like, well, first of all, I'm not going to pass this. And they're like, well, why not? And they're like, well, you're not even adhering to this law, the merchant of record law. And they've gone round and round, and I don't want to give all the details of what they've done, but Airbnb basically is like, our platform can't do that. And they've threatened, well, we'll just pull out of Alabama. And I've kind of joked, well, don't threaten me with a good time. I mean, there's other alternatives. There is booking.com, there is Vrbo, there's Whimstay, there's our website. Like, the Alabama Gulf Coast thrives.
You're not going on vacation in Alabama because you can't find a property on Airbnb.
People,
let's be honest. I'm going to Gulf Shores, Alabama, and if I get on Airbnb, they don't got any properties, I'm still going, dude.
Exactly. And we could get into the whole where co-hosts are not licensed and they're operating outside of the law, and it could have solved things. But I know they're not going to give up the Alabama Gulf Coast. So right now they're trying to propose another bill that basically states, okay, we agree, that's the law. However, if you want to list on Airbnb, you have a choice. Which what really will happen is they'll come back and say, well, in order to list on Airbnb, you have to let us be merchant of record. We agree there's a law there, but we're So it's David and Goliath. We're constantly fighting. I mean, we're Ginger and I are, we're part-time lobbyists now. We also have peers in South Carolina that are trying to get a similar law passed. We've got people in North Carolina that have contacted us because they're both licensed law states. However, state of Florida, not a licensed state. So they don't have to worry about anything in Florida. They can continue to operate and do it, and nobody's really going to probably pitch a fit or raise their hand about it. So it's a handful of states that they're really having to deal with. I think they're afraid it could be a domino effect. I'm just very hurt that a company out of California that's a multi-billion-dollar corporation is coming in and dictating to people in the state of Alabama what they can and can't do and how their money is being dictated, even though it's essentially breaking real estate law and a law that was passed in the Senate by the pro tem. So we've talked about I'd get a van. Yeah, it's always a fight. I mean, I said I would get a van. I would get all the property managers to ride up with me to Montgomery to speak their name against it. But that's another thing we've learned in this industry is because we're so fragmented. Most of my peers here, we're competitors, we're frenemies, whatever you want to call it. Most of them are not keeping their thumb on the pulse of this. They're just trying to, what's my pricing strategy today? How do I hire a new maintenance guy? Ginger and I are fortunate enough that we've structured our business out, that we've got managers and integrators and implementation people that are taking care of the company, that we can focus on bigger projects. But we're kind of becoming the voice around here that people are coming to us going, what's the next law? What's the next thing we need to be focused on? Which is, it carries its own weight as well.
Good for you guys, man. I love your story, man. I'd love to have you on again to do a round 2. I think that this was wildly interesting for me, and I know it will be for our listeners too. As we wrap it up, is there any final message you want to leave with anybody? How do people contact you? Will you be at any events this year? Just kind of give us the last little thoughts.
Sure. So we're thinking about going to Executive Summit. I know we're going to go to International for Burma. It's in Nashville. Actually, Woohoo Gulf Shores has an airport now, and we have a direct flight to Nashville. So it'll only take us an hour to get there. It's probably faster than driving to Destin for us. So we'll go there, and then a lot of times we like to go to Dorm because Amy Highnote, she's a hometown girl. We like to do that. I mean, I'm always happy to chat. My email's hunter@beachball.com. Doesn't get much more simpler than that. Reach out to me that way, and if we get to chat, I'll be happy to share my sale. The website's beachball.com. Check out the custom site there. And then, of course, Ginger's is ginger@beachball.com.
And you can't miss Ginger because she has the bright pink Bronco, right?
That's right. That's right. And we're actually putting it, so the Seafood and Car Festival is this weekend. So she's putting the Bronco in the Car Festival, and we're the kids Play Zone sponsorship. So we'll have our, so this is another marketing thing. We have a claw machine that we go to kids events, and we let the kids for free pick up cheap stuff out of the claw, and they will line up 50 deep to come pick stuff out of the claw machine.
Dude, that's awesome. Claw machine. My kids love the claw machine. I have 2 daughters, and for Christmas, we got them the little pink Broncos. Those things, they got 100,000 miles on those things in 2 months. Like, they're driving them nonstop. So I love it, man. Hunter, you're a great guy. I love what you guys are doing for the industry just as a whole, not just the advocacy stuff, but building a great brand, takes good care of guests, takes good care of homeowners. Congrats on all the success, man. Would love to have you back on again, and hopefully I'll see you in Nashville.
Sounds good. Thank you. Come have a ball at the beach.
Yeah, we'll have to check out. Yeah, we're close enough, man. We can meet up for sure. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to the STR Investing Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with friends. We will catch you next Monday for another Monday Market Data Report, and next Friday for another guest special. Thanks.